Alright guys, well, this is Crazy Horse again, welcome back. So what we're going to be doing is our taxi out. We're going to make sure our throttles are put together, verify that our anti-skid is on, verify that we have a light setup that works. So one of the big things to know is if you're at night, you need to turn these knobs on, and you'll figure this out as you get into the aircraft how dark it is. The one thing to know is as soon as you turn your battery switch on, you're going to turn the emergency flood switch right here and close your canopy. If you don't close the canopy, you're not going to get enough light through the canopy for you to be able to do this. Alright, so we're good to go. So what we're going to do is we've already called out requested taxi, and we're going to follow these taxi lines out. So increase the throttle slightly. Now one thing that we can do here is just make sure that we're following all of our taxi lines properly. They put them on here for a reason, for safety of flight. So we're going to taxi out here, head to the runway. Every time you approach somewhere, you need to turn left, look left and right. As you can hear, I'm adjusting that throttle up and down. That's actually going to be a very important part of this, is just adjusting. Taxi is extremely simple. You shouldn't be taxiing any faster than 25 knots on the ground. And what we can do is we can go to our position point here, turn that IAS to GS, and that's going to give you on the TAD right here. You'll see that GS, that's now our speed. It's our ground speed. Now we're clear to go ahead and start approaching this taxiway. We'll come up here, and you can see where there was a break there for us to be able to do that. The big thing is the taxiway lighting and lines is there just to make sure that we don't have issues with collisions with other aircraft. Everybody's doing the exact same thing, so it makes it really simple. So you can see we're doing about 19 knots on our ground speed. I can increase this slightly. Now El Dafra has an extremely long runway. You can see now I'm doing 31, so I probably need to slow myself down just a little bit. There we go. And that's a pretty stable 25 right there. I'm going to come left onto the center line here. So when you're taxiing, you can also come on here, check your map. As you can see, we're coming down all the way here, and we'll take a left onto the runway. So getting familiar with these airfields is extremely important. You need to look at the way the runways are set up. As you can see, this first left that we're coming up on the map here will take you to the runway, but it's not the right position on the runway. Especially on a loadout, which is heavy, which is most of our flights, you're going to want to be at the very end of the runway. Give yourself the most room to get up. You don't want to rush things. So here we come down to the end of the runway. I'm going to go ahead and slow. I'm at 28 knots, and that's probably not safe. If you go too fast, you'll damage your wings. So we have a couple of things we can do down here right now. Some airports have a much more defined parking way, but if you're going to come down here, you're going to do your rearm. This is a rearm point right here. You just pull in there and go ahead and park. And then aircraft line up side by side right there. So the other thing we need to do is look at our TACAN, which is 96X. And we're going to 13L. Now, when you're taking off, you want to have a 10 mile, you'll go out 10 miles to at 3,000 feet. You're going to climb to 3,000 feet, hold at 10 miles, and then you can break out to your IP. So what I just did is I turned on my TACAN there. And you probably won't see it starting to change until you're airborne. So now what we're going to do is we're on the ground, we're watching, we can see there's no aircraft. LDOT for Tower Dragon, 1-1 at hold short for 1-3 left, direct out. So that's just us making our call out on the server, especially. That's important because that's how everybody knows if it's safe to land and we don't have safety of flight issues. So we're just going to go ahead and follow this line around, and we'll do an entry here. I'm going to be on the left-hand side. Now, one of the things to know, the way we work this on the servers, is if you're doing a formation takeoff, you're going to have your lead on the left, 2 on the right, and then depending on the amount of ships, you'll either function that back and forth, or through number 3, you'll just take center line. And then you're going to have a small delay that you're going to be told what that is. So we're going to spin our engines up to 80%, tow hold, brake tow hold, and that's working. Check, we don't have any issues, nothing popping up. I'm going to run up to 100 and tow brake release. Our flaps were already set at 50%, or at the halfway mark, our takeoff, and here we go. Now once we hit 70, I'm going to take my nose wheel steering off, and now I'm just using the flaps because I have enough airflow to get through them. And at about 150 knots, 135 or so, I'm going to start to raise my nose. Here we go, and you can see, there we go. You need to make sure that's extremely smooth, otherwise you'll bounce and damage your gear. Flaps are up, gear is coming up, and you'll get that audible tone until they're all the way up. And you can see that TACAN is starting to needle over. I'm going to go ahead and adjust my trim and conduct a straight out. Waiting on that TACAN still. And I just realized I set the TACAN to the incorrect. So I'm going to do a path hold. We're going to go back here and recheck that TACAN. I did 21X and I know that's wrong. It's 96X. And there we go. As you can see, once we set it to 96X, we already start to see our TACANs there. And then if you look down here at dial number 1, you see that 1 on that dial, and then you see the 2. Dial number 1 is your TACAN. Dial number 2 is your steer point. So you can see I'm just at about a 5 degree incline here. You can look back and see we're going pretty straight out. And we're just going to watch that TACAN and our altitude. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and start leveling out. Have an altitude set. There we go. And you can see that we're about 7 miles out. Depending on your speed, that's going to be pretty normal. So you can see we're about 31 miles from our target and 59 miles from the main targets. At this point, I go ahead and start getting my TGP up and all of that, just so that we're ready to go. And this is going to be the end of this portion. L dot for tower, Dragon 11 at 3,120, 10 miles, presuming my own control. At this point, I would switch my radio over to wherever I need, and what we're going to do is, we have the IP. We can see that the IP is way over there, and we're just going to break right. That'll be the end of this portion of the taxi and takeoff training.